EV Comply, simplifying your charge point installations.
Another week, another podcast, and I'm very excited because I'm joined with Nick Leslie, who is Head of Climate Action Now at Stockport Council. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Chelsea, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. I've newly appointed Head of Climate Action Now at Stockport Council, so just been here just over a month.
Tell us about yourself. What is it that you've done previously? Where does the love for obviously being involved with going green come from? Just a bit about yourself,
Sure.
Nick.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been involved in sustainability for, almost a decade now. I originally was involved in TV and film production for a couple of decades, making shows which you may have heard of, things like Luther and Spooks and stuff like that. But I saw lots of waste on film sets, and I've always had a sort of an interest in environmentalism. And for my sins, I went back to university and did an MBA which specialised in sustainability. When I graduated, there was a role at the BBC, which they wanted somebody with production knowledge and sustainability knowledge to come in and help from a corporate level the BBC tackle their approach to sustainability. So I've been doing that for about the last 9 years. And then this opportunity came up at Stockport, which is up in the neck of the woods where I live, up in the northwest. And really, for me, getting involved with local authorities, this is, local government, this is where action needs to happen right now. This is kind of the, if you excuse the pun, the coalface of climate change. If we're not converting policies and government action right on the ground here in the locale, then I think we're all in trouble. So that's why I wanted to get involved. And luckily, as I say, I've been given the opportunity to head up the Climate Action Now strategy at Stockport Council.
Well, I think that they're extremely lucky to have you, Nick, because you've obviously got a lot of experience, but more importantly, you've got a lot of passion, and a lot of people now are kind of focusing and noticing that more needs to be done, really. So you have got loads going on, haven't you, really? But firstly, obviously, with the podcast mainly being around kind of the car industry and motoring, tell me what it is you're planning on doing with regards to transport, because that's a big one to tackle, isn't it?
Yeah. And as we know from, carbon footprints of organisations, local authorities, national carbon footprint, transport is a huge proportion of our greenhouse gas emission. So it's a really important sector to tackle. And in fact, it is one of our key work streams that we have, one of the key components of our overarching strategy at Stockport Council. So we're very much approaching it from encouraging carbon-free transport. Infrastructure, I think infrastructure is a huge issue that we need to get hold of. Obviously around EV charge points, things like that. So yeah, it is very high up our agenda, if not top of one of the top work streams within what we want to do. But yeah, we need to keep transforming the walking and cycling opportunities, I think. So that's the sort of carbon-free transport, but also enabling use of electric vehicles as well, and that involves, I think, very much installing that charge point network, joining things together. Certainly in the short term with my role, it's about building those sort of networks between businesses, communities, residents to come together. I think that's the issue with climate change, really. The council, Stockport Council, has got a big role to play in the locale, a huge role. Not just in terms of its own operations, but also in terms of influencing what happens in the whole borough too. Individual organisations, we all need to work together on this. But very much sustainable transport is key at the heart of things.
So a big concern I know that a lot of boroughs are having from here to London, and probably even further afield than that, is the adoption of EVs, particularly after the whole fuel crisis that happened. Searches of EVs were up by 87% online, because obviously people were panicking, thinking, well, if I had an electric car, this wouldn't be a concern. Or what are you planning to put into action with regards to the charge point infrastructure? Because I know that seems to be quite a concern for most boroughs, that everyone's going to run out and buy these electric cars, but where do they fundamentally charge them?
Yeah, and there's the whole aspect of, I suppose, your personal charge points at home, but also out on the road. I mean, when you think about the number of petrol stations, which are they're pretty much on the corner of every other street, that's what we need for the infrastructure for EVs, and it needs to have a commonality as well, because you can't have different types of charging connections and or different levels as well. There's rapid charge points. We were lucky enough to be visited actually yesterday by Planet Mark, who are training the country in their I think they're what we call their climate battle bus. And it's a 100% electric bus, which impressively had a range of 200 miles. But I think that there was issues, in their journey on their way up to COP26 in Glasgow, which is where they're ultimately going to end up. There are issues about where they can charge, because I think these buses need quite a large, the rapid charge points of 50 kilowatt type levels of charging infrastructure, and there aren't that many around. They even said they turned it to one place and it was the wrong type of connector. And so at Stockport Council, I know we are very much looking into increasing the number of charge points which are available publicly. And we also need to be mindful of how the energy is obtained for those charge points too. So I know there's all sorts of ideas around about solar arrays and batteries, storage batteries, which then can connect up with these things. So as I say, it's sustainable transport. You can have it as a standalone thing, but it's all interconnected.
Of course it is.
Those are the kind of the work streams that we, that I'll go on to talk about in a second.
So I suppose that leads me nicely. You did just start to touch upon that renewable energy. It's going to definitely be needed. So what are your thoughts and plans with regards to renewable energy, Nick? I'd be really interested to hear those.
Yeah, well, I mean, we that's again one of the other work streams that we've got, one of the main sort of components of the strategy, and I suppose it's focusing on making sure future energy needs of the borough can be met in sustainable ways. So we want to maximise sustainable energy. We want to be looking into sort of heating systems in new developments. I think having shared heating and energy networks are really important. Got a really exciting development through the Mayoral Development Corporation known as MDC, and I think they're building over 3,500 homes, and that very much that huge development, which is transformation, it's a massive regeneration scheme through the Mayor of Manchester. It has a strategic target of being net zero, so that which is fantastic. And so we really need to work together with the developers, energy provision, and a common heating network which is sustainably run. Then that's a huge part of that, and obviously then connecting through. That's what I meant about these different work streams all connecting together, because obviously the energy from those things can help provide power to the transport network and all those kind of things. So it's really quite exciting. It's hopefully going to create a whole new way of living.
I think what I love most about this industry is that, almost everything has gone back to the drawing board, but specifically design. We've stopped kind of designing cars because that's how a car should look, because now it's taken a new dynamic. And the same with houses, I presume. The plans you've seen, everything isn't as rigid anymore. Do you know what I mean?
And I suppose that can go into the use of the car as well. We're seeing the rise of things like car clubs, and whereby it's not just one person who owns the product, so to speak. It's something that's shared, which is obviously much more sustainable. Designing out, I know this is about transport, but designing out car dependency and it is in the way we live in these sort of town centre developments as well. It's obviously more sustainable, but also at the same time reducing vehicle emissions as well. So that's why the transfer over to EVs, I think, is the right way to be going at the moment. I mean, everybody talks about hydrogen, and when that's going to come online. And I think this is the thing. We're at that point in time now where we need to be making the decisions on the direction of travel. And you're looking at the likes of air source heat pumps. People are saying, oh, should we wait around until there's the hydrogen infrastructure? I don't think we can wait. We really just need to kind of go with one. It's a bit like the VHS Betamax type situation. Many, I'm showing my age now. But we need to kind of, and I think that's where local authorities and government really have a leadership role to play in this. We kind of need to make those decisions, and then business know where to follow, and they know where to put their money. Because nobody wants to choose the Betamax version, do they?
No, absolutely not. So we don't have the time to ponder. So how are you going about making those decisions?
Yeah, I think it's really important to make data-driven decisions, and that's why we're kind of introducing the council new financial appraisal systems, which take into account carbon emissions, or greenhouse gas emissions, should I say, and also building in environmental impact assessments to pretty much all the projects that we make decisions on, to understand what the environmental impacts are. It's that holistic approach of sustainability, of understanding it's not just the financial cost, but the environmental cost and the social costs too. And so, and that then pervades cascades itself across all areas such as procurement and commissioning, which again the council may not be directly its own operations, but it has massive influence over the scale of, as I say, procurement and commissioning that councils do. So that's really important to use the data to understand, right, what are the most material impacts in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, because and I think personally that heading to a place where we have carbon budgets, I think that is the better place to be. It's been great that everybody's setting these net zero targets or carbon neutrality targets, and I think if we can apportion the incline of the the net zero kind of, if you plot it onto a graph and we're here and we need to get to zero by this date, it's the shaded area underneath the incline of that line on the graph that's our carbon budget, and we need to apportion that out on that journey to those dates. We're not going to have some magic bullet that come 2038 will just we're back down to zero emissions. If we carry on in the trajectories we are, and even if we did have that magical bullet that got us to near zero at 2038, we'd have used twice the carbon budget, because it's all about keeping us below that 1.5 degree change, and that's the scientists have worked this out. We know this is factual, this is science, this is data, and so I think that's the key to that, is working to those carbon budgets. Everybody will be getting on board with this, and we'll hopefully see that arise from COP26 with the leaders of the world coming together and joining up on it. There's tons more to do. There's loads more to do, and I think that really is the key to this. Is this isn't just the council's remit to sort this out. This is everybody's everybody's business really, and it is going to touch on everybody's lives, and so we all kind of need to work together in this fight against climate change.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nick, because you do have years of experience. So thank you for your time today, for having a chat with us. So Nick Leslie, Head of Climate Action now at Stockport Council, thank you for chatting with me.
Great. Thanks, Chelsea.